Okay, so when discussing Mars, it's also always important to at least give a little bit of acknowledgement to all this intrigue that always surrounds the planet Mars. It's always this destination for tales and stories and questions about Martians and aliens and life and water and all that sort of thing. So I'll just give you a little bit of a heads up on how all that started and why it seems to persist today. So we've also had, though, a couple of factual videos in this series here where we discuss life on Mars. It's just a no right now. Not only is there no life right now, but there's no evidence of life on Mars. A bit of controversy with a couple of fossils, but that's about as far as it goes. As far as water goes on Mars, the answer to that, of course, as you know now, is yes, but not flowing water. It's all frozen because Mars is so cold, but there is water on Mars. So let's talk about the Martians and the aliens and just some of this general intrigue that always surrounds the planet. So perhaps it all started with an Italian astronomer, Schiaparelli. He was making observations of Mars, and of course there was no cameras back then. So like you've been asked to do in some of the astronomy assignments you've had over the course of the quarter, he made a lot of sketches about what he saw. And so when he looked at Mars in a telescope, low quality obviously back in the day, this is sort of what he saw. Now if you look at it, this is his drawing here, 1877, so it was quite some time ago, not necessarily the high-tech time that we live in now. It might look like from his drawing that this large thing up here at the top might be like a big ocean, the very top of the planet. And what these are here might be canals that are delivering water to drier portions of the planet. And so you have to sort of acknowledge that that might be an indication of some advanced society there, advanced civilizations that's able to do projects on a very large scale, which is, of course, routing water all over a planet. And I think part of the problem with what happened was he was Italian, and I think the Italian word that he tried to get across, he actually meant to say the word channel, but somehow it got translated and distributed as canal. And so there's maybe, sort of a little distinction between the words, but channel might be something that's a bit more natural. Like you might go out and say, oh, look at this channel that this river carved by erosion. But the word canal, that's more of a sort of a human or sort of intelligent structure, right? So in other words, humans or intelligent beings might go make canals versus like water and erosion that might make channels. I don't know, but I think that was part of the problem, just some information lost in translation. I don't know if it was necessarily his plan to sort of think that there were intelligent beings on Mars making these canals as opposed to channels that might have been carved naturally. So I'll just put a big question mark there, but that's all part of this intrigue of the planet. Okay, so here's, for example, one of his drawings here that I took out of a textbook, and so you can see that this is sort of what it looked like in his telescope here. You can see the polar cap, which as we know now is mostly frozen water with a large surface of frozen carbon dioxide on top of it here. And this dark region, which, to me personally looks like the Batman summon symbol, would get translated over here into this. And so once again, he does map the dark region, but somehow within the dark region, he still manages to get all of these canals or channels or whatever he meant sort of in there. That structure is still in there that he sort of passed or got lost in translation to be something that an intelligent being might have constructed. So I do not see this structure in this image, but that's just me personally. Maybe you do. He certainly did. Then, of course, there's a Percival Lowell. So he started an observatory near Arizona, Flagstaff, not near Arizona, in Arizona, Flagstaff in 1907. And he was really interested in studying Mars too. There he is right there. By the way, the observatory is still there. You can go see it. There's some exhibits and things like that. But his records, for example, were to basically see this of Mars and then draw this. So again, I see the dark region that he's trying to draw in here, but where all this structure is, where he's getting that, I don't see it over here, but that's just saying what happened, the intrigue of the planet. Here's some more detailed work of, I believe it was Schiaparelli's work, that you can see what the planet sort of actually might have looked like back then. A little bit of a polar cap there. You can see in the south, weather dependent, of course, and some of the regions of Mars here that somehow got mapped into all these interesting canals or channels and things. Same with the lower one. So me personally, I'm not seeing the connection between these pairs of images and looks at the planet. That's what came out. This is the Arizona astronomer, Percival Lowell here. This is what he sort of came up with. It looked like a bunch of mosquitoes. So we see that darkened region in the top there, and again, these are the canals, whatever. That's sort of what came out. And so, again, if these were scientists pointing their telescopes and doing these systematic studies of Mars, maybe for the first time, and then disseminating this information, you can see how it would be interpreted. Wow, there must be some intelligent being on Mars making these canals. The other thing that happened was a bit of the media. Now, this was a long time ago, but remember, all the speculation intrigue with Mars has been going on for a long time. And so the first one was this War of the Worlds thing, and it was science fiction, but here it's one of the earliest stories to detail a conflict between mankind and the extraterrestrial race. And so, of course, it sort of takes place where southern England is invaded by Martians. Okay, and so there's where the Martians and the Mars and all these things came to life, and it was just a classic there. And of course, the narrative just opens here, stating that humans on Earth, although they were busy with their own endeavors in the mid-1890s, aliens on Mars began plotting invasion of Earth because their own resources were dwindling. In other words, Martians started to invade Earth because they were using up all of their resources. And so as we just got along with our busy lives, the Martians started coming down to Earth, or out to Earth or whatever, to invade us here. And there's all kinds of just great graphics in here. These are some of the early drawings here where England is getting destroyed, and here's all the Martians sort of, I don't know, walking or sliding around or whatever, invading, time machines and all these things. More just great graphics here, these are just some of the domiciles in southern England there, and here's the Martians coming in for invading. So it was just a great science fiction thing, but again, it was all this, Mars, what about all this stuff that's going on Mars? And that's sort of what happened there. And then, of course, in 1938, The War of the Worlds was translated into a radio drama, and I've never heard it or listened to it or anything, and maybe actually I should. I think it sounds interesting. This was sort of put out like a news documentary, and people just had trouble here. Here, an episode of radio drama. It was an adaptation of War of the Worlds, where people didn't know if it was fake. So apparently, the broadcasting studio got on and just started saying things like, "This is an important news update broadcast, and Martians are coming," and blah blah blah, and it just caused a lot of panic among the listening audience at the time. But it just fueled that thing about Mars and Martians and got those words out there. And there was this picture. This is off of Wikipedia, but there was this picture here. No one connected with the broadcast had any idea that it would cause panic. Now, how much panic it caused and things is still up for debate. But I'm just saying this is part of all that lore about Mars and how all this stuff started there. So also, just to close then, let me tell you about a few misleading and misinterpreted features on Mars, but I will do that in the next video.